almost weren't allowed to pour today. We have been delayed by like a week and a half.
We had already missed the first inspection. At that point, there was a big argument, a confrontation with those guys. He just literally walked off the job site.
All right, welcome back to this week. Today is concrete pour day. We almost weren't allowed to pour today. We're gonna talk about those issues. We have been delayed by like a week and a half, and we're gonna talk about that right now.
So the crew that you guys saw in last week's video that was behind us working, we're gonna call them Caesar's crew. They were there. We had already missed the first inspection. The second inspection, the inspector showed up and they were not ready, so he just literally walked off the job site. At that point, we realized we had a problem. We scheduled the next inspection a day before. We realized again, they're not ready and they're not getting things done. So we pushed that back. These guys continued till the Friday of that week. They weren't finishing and they decided they're gonna leave early on Friday. At that point, there was a big argument, a confrontation with those guys. Unfortunately, I'm like, hey, if you guys keep making these promises and don't deliver, we can't keep doing this. We paid them, which was unfortunate, but we had to learn from our mistakes. We moved forward. We found Toro Foundation and Framing, who was actually the guys that we had talked to, was our second pick to do our framing. And he came and he helped us finish up the foundation and get ready for inspections.
So Oswaldo from Toro came. He helped us clean up everything. That took about a week, and then we had another inspection. Inspector showed up and he didn't pass us because we needed what's called a form certificate. He requested that we have a form certificate done, which is we had to get the surveyor back out here to make sure that we put our forms in the right spots. We didn't have everything in the right spots right away.
We realized that our fireplace was actually, instead of having a 3-foot setback, it was put out 3 feet, which left us with a 2-foot setback. So I had to come in here and start taking apart the forms and moving them in a foot, taking apart the rebars, moving them in. I had no idea, I've never done this before, but I just kind of from watching and figuring it out, you gotta get it done. We stayed here until we got it done. The time lapse, which I had set for 3 hours, actually ended before I was even finished, but we got it done and we got that form certification.
After we got the surveyor to come check our forms and give us the form certificate, we had our next inspection. The inspector came, he looked at everything seemed okay, and then he turned around and he said that we need to get our anchor bolts inspected by a deputy inspector. So we had to figure that out before we can pour concrete. So he said we can conditionally pour as long as we get a deputy out here to inspect our anchor bolts before we pour. So he didn't actually sign the paper, but he kind of did. So we kind of passed, kind of didn't. I don't know, we're in this gray area, but basically
we got the stamp of approval to pour, and that's what matters, so we're able to pour today. So we basically learned that throughout the permit process, there is a section on your permit once it's issued called the checklist items, and then there's special inspections there. You have to be mindful about that little section, which we were not. We needed an anchor bolt inspection, which is a special inspection. We also needed an epoxy, which is when you glue in rebar or anything to existing foundation. You need a deputy inspector out here, and we also needed a structural observation, which is the structural engineer comes out here and makes sure you're building the building according to his specification. Once you have all of that, then you can get your stamp of approval to start pouring. So let's get to pouring concrete, because that's the fun part, and at the end of the video you'll see how much we paid for all of this. The concrete pump guy is all set up right now. We have the guys spraying diesel on the forms to make sure that the forms don't stick to the concrete, which we should have done beforehand, but we didn't know. I wanted to go over the sleeves that are putting in the foundation, and Eddie will go over the ground that we're putting in the foundation for the electrical box. The sleeves we put in for the drain and the water pipes. It's very hard to go through concrete foundation walls. Better if you have the sleeves put in there. So we had our plumber come out and they put the sleeves in the right spot so we can pass through any drains or pipes that we need through the stem wall.
So as far as electrical goes, what we have here is called a U-for ground. So you take a 20-foot piece of rebar, you bend the corner of it, you stick it up and you connect it to all the rebars, and that grounds your electrical box that's going to go here throughout the entire foundation. So that way you don't need a separate ground for your electrical box.
Alright guys, this rebar is left over from setting the rebar in the form. They're really heavy, so throwing these out is a pain in the behind. A solution to that is to throw these in the concrete as they're pouring it. You can't have it touching dirt or anything else because it can create rust, deteriorate, and compromise the integrity of the foundation. As long as we throw this in halfway, all it does is add more structure to the foundation, and it's an easy way to get rid of these rods. I'm in the garage where we already poured almost all the footing. They're doing the rest of the stem wall right now. We got this blue barrier here that we don't have in the rest of the house. That's because the garage is slab on grade foundation. So under this blue vapor barrier, per code, we have 4 inches of 1-inch gravel. So we have that laid, about 4 inches of that. And then on top of that, we have the vapor barriers. That's to trap any moisture from the ground coming up into the concrete and compromising the integrity of the concrete. They're gonna finish pouring the rest of this garage and then move on to the rest of the footing of the house.
So the concrete trucks showed up like 2 hours late. Now we have 3 trucks here at the same time. We're trying to get them out as quickly as possible, but they charge us for sitting around time. So we need to get them out of here as fast as we can. We got to pump this concrete out. That's what we're doing.
24 karat gold. We use this in our foundation. When they're wet pouring the foundation, what you want to do is take 24 karat gold and periodically throw it into the foundation. The reason we do that is simply so that in the title of this video, I can write we use 24 karat gold in our foundation and you can click on this video. And that's why it's essential to use 24 karat gold inside of your foundation.
All right, so we're wrapping up pouring the concrete today. We ended up actually needing to order more trucks than we originally thought. At first we ordered only 4 trucks. I kept calling them saying, hey, I need another truck, I need another truck. We ended up ordering 8 trucks.
That's double what we expected originally, but we also don't know what we're doing. So.
Yeah, so these things happen, I guess. The one thing we learned is start in the morning, don't start in the afternoon. They were a bit late like I talked about, so that pushed us back. If we were after 6 o'clock, it was...
It's about an extra $2,000 after hour fees and other fees. And in order to avoid that, we got 1 extra truck, which was $1,300 roughly. But we don't know if we're gonna end up needing that concrete, but it was a safer bet.
So we promised you guys we're gonna talk about pricing. For the deputy inspectors that inspected our anchor bolts and our epoxy, we paid $500.
As far as the labor goes, we ended up spending $16,400. We had problems with the laborers. We gave Caesar's crew $12,000. They didn't finish the job. We called our framer Oswaldo. We gave him $3,000 to clean up the framing and get us past inspection. And then the concrete finishers right now, we're giving them $1,400 to finish everything and make sure everything's poured out and pull off the forms.
For the dirt hauling, we paid another $1,800 to take out all the dirt that were where the forms are now. And then for all the materials, like all the lumber that you see and all the hardware, we paid another $10,400.
And the last thing on our list was the concrete and the pump. The concrete is $10,400 for 8 trucks, which is about 80 yards of concrete. And then the pump was $200 setup and $10 a yard, so that's $1,000, bringing us to $11,400. The grand total for the foundation is $40,500. It's a big number. We didn't feel it going into it, but I definitely feel it looking at that number. Next week, we're gonna talk about floor joists and framing everything out. So subscribe, comment down below with any questions, hit that notification bell, share this video with your friends. We got more coming your way.